only be private to projects and the hub team, and there will be notes as well. So I do want to extend, and you know, the Secretariat, can you maybe mute your line as well, please? For the feedback, thank you. So I do want to extend a very warm welcome to everybody. Welcome, bienvenue, and this, wow, what a milestone, the Hub's very first webinar with all of the projects. And for those who did see in their email this morning, the invitations for this webinar were extended to the Hub team and also the projects. And for the Hub team, just for complete clarity and transparency about who's invited and who's potentially on the line, from the Hub team, that includes the Secretariat at Waterloo, and also members of our leadership team were invited. So at least a couple of them are on the line as well. And then all the projects. That's it. And it's fantastic to have such a strong representation from the projects.
Awesome. And just a note that today's seminar will be conducted primarily in English, mais pour ceux qui aimeraient recevoir cette information en français, nous explorons toujours avec les projets les meilleures façons de partager ou de résumer les séminaires qui sont menés en anglais. Un séminaire en français est toujours une option, par exemple. Je vous invite également à poser des questions en français aujourd'hui, si vous le voudriez.
Merci beaucoup, Eric. So the next slide, one of the things that we like to start with is basically what are the intentions for our hour together. And those intentions, those the desired focus areas, how we like to think about them, just what are the things that are really trying to advance our goals, and then something that's also experiential. So for today's webinar, which all of you were prepped in advance, that really our intentions today are just to whet your appetite about the Hub website that is only open to yourselves and the FAC team at this point, to visit the website and to help shape it with us, to invite your input on some selective features. And today, our main intention is to touch on the project landing pages, and also to just make sure you're all right up to speed with all things happening with the Hub needs assessment and how that information will be used and what you can expect. So those are a few of our intentions for today's webinar. The experiential bit, one of the core commitments that you've heard from us is very much about continuous improvement, learning as we go. This is, this is such early days between the Hub and the projects, and the experiential part of this is really about beginning to shape the ways that we work together. So we'd like to, we're incorporating different ways of having some virtual input and other things, and we'll shape that as we go with you. So how we'll act on these intentions is the flow of the seminar, and that's shown on the next slide here, that basically, like any good time together, we're going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The stuff in the middle is going to focus on a little bit of that Hub website tour and your input, and also the update on the needs assessment. We'll close the loop on the webinar today with some reflections that actually bring us back to the seminar intentions, and then bid everybody farewell.
Okay, so we thought maybe up front we would just mention a few guidelines around participation in the webinar. And as Barb mentions, many of these things we are just testing out as well. So we'll see how these go and adapt along the way. So the first one just is around when you are speaking, we would ask that you identify your name and your project, and if you would like, also identify your gender pronoun. When you're not speaking, please, if you wouldn't mind putting your audio on mute, and that will help to reduce some of the background noise that we're hearing as well. And I can see that we have some people connected. Most people are connected online, it looks like. So if you are connected online, we'd ask that you use the chat function to post any questions or comments throughout the webinar. And you can find your, if you don't have your chat bar open, If you go to the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a little bubble with chat underneath, and you can go ahead and open your chat window there, and feel free at any time to throw any questions in there, and I'll be monitoring those and we'll bring those forward. For those who might be connected by phone only, we will pause periodically to see if you have any questions or input along the way, or also feel free to jump in if that's easier for you. So over to Eric.
Okay, awesome. So what I'm going to do is just go through a little bit of what we have already developed on the Hub website, and some of the things upcoming or ideas that we have for different ways that we can add some functionality to it. So I'm just going to drop out of the PowerPoint for just a second and switch over to the website. There we go. All right. So this is the front page of the website. First and foremost, you will need to register for an account and log in before you can access it. Some of you may already have done that, and there is a process of approval where once you fill out the registration, I do need to manually approve, just to make sure that we're getting the right people registering to the platform, because we are kind of in a partially closed off phase right now for the website. So if you do register, please use a name that is recognizable or identify which project you're in, whatever way you find that to be easier. For those who have registered already, I haven't had any trouble at all identifying you to a project, so that's great. But yeah, as a reminder, currently only those involved in the Mental Health Promotion Innovation Fund can access this website, and that includes us, the Secretariat, the leadership team, the Hub leadership team, and the FAC MHPIF team. So just a couple other general site features before we get into the more specifics. Each page will have a banner with some descriptions about what you'll expect to see within each page, and I'll show you that as we go through. And also at the bottom of every page there is this web chat which you can open up, and will kind of open up a direct line to the Hub Secretariat, often me, but not always. And you can see that with this little green dot at the end, and in the text that's in there, it will tell you if we are online and likely to respond quickly. And if we are not online, your message will be recorded, and we'll get a response back to you eventually. And you can make note that the messages here are anonymous, and they're direct only to the Hub. So you may want to identify yourself or not when you use this chat. Our website also is bilingual, so that all elements and the content that we provide will be available in both official languages, English and French in Canada, including logos and French versions of videos. So if there are any French speakers, there is that option as well, or English speakers who want to switch to the English side. If you ever find yourself in the wrong language, the controls are always found at the top, switching between the English and the French. So let me switch back to the English, since this is largely an English webinar. I'll just talk a little bit about the primary architecture of the website, just to show kind of what we had intended and where you might find certain things. So right here is the homepage. Once you've logged in, you'll be able to see there's some general information here, and you'll also be able to see some things like upcoming events. I'll show you those in more detail shortly. For example, you can see this seminar right now on the 26th of February is the first one, is the next one that's coming up. You can also see recent posts. There's a very nice message here from Bart welcoming people to the platform. I do highly recommend you read it, just to see kind of what we have intended for the website and for the projects. Great. And then at the bottom of the page, there is some general website pages for privacy policy, things like that, as well as another navigation bar. But we'll go back up to the top and start off with, let's go left to right here, and we'll start off with the About page, where you'll find information about the Hub. Some of this information will be familiar to those of you who were present on the orientation calls. We do also have an organizational video, which is also a great watch if you have a couple minutes. On this page, you'll find some of that higher level information about the Hub, who we are, our vision, who we serve, why we exist, what we do, a little bit of backstory into the Hub. Also on this page, you'll find individual profiles for people involved in the KDE Hub. Here's the Secretariat, for example. We also have profiles for many of the leadership team members, some of whom are on this call right now. So they might look familiar to you. And then we also have some profiles for individuals and organizations that we have been working with for a little bit over a year now, here and there, for different things. And we do invite you to, if you find yourself on this page and you want to learn more about somebody, feel free to click on them and it will take you directly to a profile where you can learn a little bit more about them and a little bit more about their interest in the MHPIF and perhaps the MHPIF more broadly and general mental health promotion, including some tag interests. So that's my page, for example. I'll scroll back up to the top, sorry. The Hub support section here is really where we're going to be kind of housing all of the core ways that we plan to kind of extend resources and support to the projects. So there's a couple ways that you can get through here. If you click on the Hub support section, if you hover over it, you'll see the three main sections, which are resources, making connections, and mentoring. And if you click on that top level menu item, there is just a little bit of a different navigation here with the same three options. And so I'll kind of go through each one. In the resources section, I'll click that one. We have uploaded a preliminary selection of some resources that we thought, and through consultation with leadership team and past projects in similar situation as you, we kind of selected this curated list of resources fitting into categories that are relevant to the work that you're doing and relevant to the MHPIF projects and informed through those consultations. So for example, take a look at this first category, the mental health promotion context. We have a number of resources here. I'll open up one, for example, and we can take a look at what that internal landing page is. Each resource has its own page where we share the full citation for information, a brief description of what that resource is, and how it might be useful for yourselves as projects of the Mental Health Promotion Innovation Fund. And again, all of these annotations here are available in French as well. However, not all of the resources are bilingual. Some are, though. And then you can just click on this link here and it will open up the resource in a new tab. You can also use the categories on the right-hand side to sift through or filter to find specific, to just see each of the resources that fall under that category. And there is also up here in the banner a brief description of what that category really means. So in the mental health promotion context category, it's really about definitions and developments related to mental health promotion in Canada and worldwide. The environment within the funded projects are unfolding. That's just an example of one of them. There are others for things like evaluation, scaling up, project communications, organizational partnerships, and so on. So we do invite you to explore this current set of resources. We do expect and plan to grow it over time, and welcome any other resources that you might already have explored or read through, any that you feel might be worth including on this platform as well. So that resources section will just be kind of a repository, but also a place for a little bit of commentary from the Hub Secretariat and leadership team about the potential use of those resources. Another pillar of support is making connections. Along with the biweekly seminars and the annual symposium, we have some other ideas for options for opening dialogue between projects and individuals on this virtual space. The development of these additional functionalities will be informed in part by our needs assessment conversations, which are well underway right now, and with the projects. And there are always opportunities for you to weigh in on what might be most use for you and your team. So for now, not a ton on this page as it stands, but we are working on figuring out the most meaningful ways to help or to support making connections between projects and between others involved in mental health promotion in Canada. And the last pillar of support is mentoring, which will be developed as the Hub learns a little bit more about the Mental Health Promotion Innovation Fund projects, the areas of focus, their needs, their interests. Again, it will be partially informed by the needs assessments that are going on right now. And we look forward to reaching out to you for leaders. We look forward to looking at 2 leaders in child and youth mental health promotion for this purpose. And again, we welcome any suggestions for people, individuals who might be a potential great resource for this type of work. Opportunities for seeking advice and guidance from these leaders. So that's kind of the main selection or collection of Hub supports. We also have this page here for projects. Again, some of the terminology we've used already is the landing pages for projects. Barb would have mentioned earlier. That's one piece of information, one piece that we hope to get some feedback from you about. So this page is really intended to provide a thumbnail sketch of all of the projects that are going on within the Mental Health Promotion Innovation Fund and the work that's already underway across the country. So here you'll see all of the projects listed by their project names in no particular order right now. You can click on each project to go and see their own landing page. Right now, each of these really has just some of the more high-level information. This one with the banner image here is a sample project that I put together kind of to demonstrate what we were imagining or what we are currently imagining these pages can look like. We're hoping to get some similar information from each project to display it. So this one right here will be describing kind of the KDE Hub. I'll show you what that looks like. So there's a brief description up in the top right, just like most of the other pages. There will be space for including images, pretty clear, pretty easy for us to include our logo there, including the project title, the lead organization, and then a bit of information about what that project, who they are and what they're doing, and just a brief description of the work that you're doing. And of course, being able to have some spaces to provide any additional links to contacts or to web pages that you think are relevant. So this text here is kind of placeholder text for the KDE Hub. This is more or less what we're envisioning. And then we might also take these pieces of information about your projects and put them into a one-page PDF that will look similar across the projects. So the project descriptions here don't need to have frequent updates either. It's really just to give a sense of what's going on within your project. In our orientation calls, we talked about the Hub as the 21st project, so that's kind of why we use this as an example. But information for projects will be different as well. Some of the categories that we are considering looking into or identifying from your projects include the title of your organization, the sites that your project is working in, the population served, the approaches, and the desired outcomes. So the Hub, we will put this together. We'll put together that information that we can into a format similar to this and share with you for feedback before we publish it on our website. We hear here, this is a co-developed page, but will only really require minimal effort on your part just to kind of take a look at what we put together from the various sources of information that we have, including your proposals and the needs assessments. We just want to ensure that the projects are being suitably represented before our website is opened up to the public. And we do, like I mentioned here, we do have this banner image as an example of something we can do if either we can provide some stock photos like this one here, or any photos that you might want to include there for your project. Again, not necessarily the route we'll go, but it is an option. Next up on the events page, so you had a sneak peek at the events on the home page, which shows the next 3. On this page, you'll find details around events happening within the Hub and the MHPIF. So with a brief description, here's the calendar format There are a couple different ones that I'll show you, but each of these events are something that we have entered in. So here are all of the needs assessments as they're scheduled for this month. This is the month of February. Again, here's the seminar that we are in right now. So I'll skip forward to March as well, just to show a couple more. More needs assessments, and then the next upcoming seminar also on the 13th of March, which is co-designing the first annual symposium. So this is just kind of a place that you can, anything related to the hub and to the projects that we might be able to display will fall here, and you can enter into any of the events on the calendar and get some of the connection information. In this particular case, it describes briefly what this seminar is. And you can get meeting invitations for your calendars from there as well. One other quick thing to highlight is below the calendar, we will also be posting a few highlights from past hub events, things that would have taken place prior to our contact with the projects. Here's one example, a design workshop that we worked with an organization to come up with ideas for this very web-based platform. You can go in there to read a little bit about some of that pre-work that we did back in 2019. And there will be other briefs for events that we'll post there, including one for this seminar once we've wrapped up and have some description of what went on today. Lastly, the contact page. Right now it has a contact form if you want to send an email, a message to the KDE Hub. I think we'll also include our contact information in some way. So my email address, likely Anetta's as well, maybe the KDE Hub general email address too, if you want to send messages that way. Otherwise, you always have the web chat in the bottom right-hand corner as well, and possibly use of traditional email too. One last thing I just wanted to mention about kind of what's going on in the menu bar here. When you are logged in, you have this bar at the top, which is largely for account controls. So this is where you can go to reset your password, to log out, and the notification section is really not, we're not necessarily intending to use that in any way, but it is something that we could potentially set up. Right now it shows that I have several, but it doesn't send emails or anything like that. So that's really what we have for the website at this point. I think I will switch back over to the PowerPoint, but I can pause right now to see if anybody has any questions or comments about what I've kind of just gone through here. Again, welcome to enter those into the chat if you wish, or speak up now if you have a question while I switch back over to the PowerPoint.
So maybe if we have anyone on the phone that wants to ask a question or a comment or provide any feedback.
I have one, if possible. Sorry, you can't see me.
Of course.
Just to say, I've actually been following on the French website, and there's a lot missing. But so it's not really a big thing. But like, are you going to fix it?
Yeah, of course. So there are a couple of things that we just have updated as recently as earlier this morning, and so there will be a couple of things that still need to be translated. But it will all be, we have a list of things to update, and in general, okay, when we do those types of updates, we try to put both the French and English up at the same time so that there's no discrepancy. But I know there are a couple things outstanding right now that we are getting into as soon as we can, but we're pointing that out.
Okay, thank you. Another question if nobody's going, sorry. We already have access to the website, and we only registered one email address for now that we're all going to use, and maybe we're going to share it with the researcher that works on the project. Is it okay like that, or do we need separate addresses?
Yeah, no, and that's Yeah, thanks for queuing that as well. That's something that I was hoping to mention. So thanks. You are absolutely welcome to just use one account for your project. It's kind of whatever works better for you. There's no problem if you have that account logged in on multiple machines at the same time. Any activities or posts or things that happen will just come from that account. You'll have the same level of access. In some ways, it can be easier to just share one account if you can, but you're more than welcome for multiple people from your project to register if they wish. And I did want to mention also that we are hoping that at least one person from each project will register so that you can have access to this platform and can sort of be someone from that project to be able to use it, to use the different and access the different resources that we have. But yeah, great question. And yeah, more than welcome to just share an account across your project.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
So any other questions or comments out there? We do have a comment from Megan at CFCC commenting on the resource page. She's looking forward to diving into that. Thank you, Megan.
Awesome. And one thing I might mention on that, we have gone through all of those links that we have in there and tested them. They should all be accessible, but if you do have any issues with either accessing the resources or anything that you notice on the website at all while you're going through, please by all means connect with myself or someone at the Secretariat and we'll look into it. There are different ways to share those resources, but those links should be all easily accessible for everybody, both in French and English. And even if you do have a chance to look at those resources, if you find any that are particularly useful, that you'd like to highlight that you used it or learned something from it, that's also great to hear. That sort of feedback is always welcome. Yeah, I think so. We should do at least one.
Okay. We thought we would maybe test out a couple of interactive components here. And one of the things we're wondering about is how many people on the call might have already registered for an account on the Hub website. So you should be able to see a poll on your screens now. If you want to select whether or not you've created your account.
Awesome. Yeah. For those of you who are in front of your computers anyways, I don't think there's any audio cue for those connected by phone.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but this is just a test for us as well, just to see how this can work.
And don't worry, the poll is anonymous. It's okay to say no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. That's great.
So I can just quickly share the results so everyone can see them. So we've got about 75% of people, 9 people on the line have created an account. A few not yet, and one not sure. So
great. That's awesome.
Yeah, and if there's any other supports that we can provide in helping to create those accounts, we're happy to hear about that as well. Does anyone have any questions about that? Eric is also a resource after the webinar as well. If you want to get in contact with him, he can walk you through that.
For sure.
All right.
Moving on.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so probably that'll do for the tour for now. Again, a lot of those things are open to modifications, and we are still exploring ways to create a meaningful space for the project. So looking forward to more development there, and some feedback from projects as we go along is always appreciated. So thank you for watching. And I'll pass it over to Aneta to speak a little bit about the project needs assessment, which I had mentioned a couple times while I was going through the website. So Aneta?
Thanks very much. Thanks, Eric. That was great. So yeah, I'm just going to very briefly talk about the needs assessment. We've talked about it quite a bit, and we're in touch with I think pretty much all the projects for either we've already done, like had the conversation with you, or we're about to. I will take a few minutes to just provide a few updates and then open it up, as Eric did, just for some questions or comments afterwards. So the intention today is just to briefly talk about how things are going and to share a couple of things that we've learned so far. The purpose is not to have a fulsome discussion today. That'll come once we've had a chance to speak with everybody and have had a chance to prepare a summarized report, essentially, and to share that with all of you. We kind of thought about what to share today and kind of landed in the place of wanting to avoid a little bit influencing too much what those who haven't had their needs assessment call with us, influencing how they might answer some of the questions. So we'll just kind of share a few interesting things that have come up. So just as a reminder, the needs assessment consists of those conversations we're having with projects, as well as our review of project proposals. And what we do hear from projects, we're going to be sharing within the Hub team only, like as far as project-specific information. And anything that's shared more broadly will be summarized and anonymized. So the information that we're collecting will just help us determine what's of greatest interest to projects and what types of supports are meaningful and realistic, and what may be some new knowledge development opportunities. We've had the opportunity to speak with 8 projects thus far, and have actually scheduled 10 more as of today between now and mid-March. So we're cooking now. And we've had some really great input so far. So for example, some of the advice that we've received is to just pay attention to the volume of communications. And we acknowledge that recently there have been lots of invitations coming in from the Hub as we try to get things in your calendars with these seminars and those calls and so forth. We are trying to limit actions to the most time-sensitive items, but we want you to know that we're listening to your feedback, and we are committed to acting in ways that add value and not burden. So once we've spoken with all the projects, as I said, we'll prepare a short report of main findings and discuss with you to identify learning needs that may be shared across the projects. At the same time, we're developing our processes for responding to and anticipating project needs, like project-specific needs. So for example, one of the things we heard on a call was a project's interest to have the Hub provide some tailored feedback about intervention design and implementation and evaluation planning that could help create conditions for success. So we're exploring options such as this, and we'll kind of shape that as we've learned more about your interests. So yeah, just wanted to say thanks again for taking the time to speak with us and to consider how we can shape our partnership together moving forward. So at this point, I'll just open it up to any questions or comments about the needs assessment.
And again, maybe starting with any folks on the phone, if you want to ask questions, and those who are online can add anything to the chat for now.
Oh, it's so nice to know that everything's crystal clear. It really is fantastic how open all of you have been to these conversations, and the timeliness of that as well. So a huge echoing of Annetta's thanks that she ended as well.
Well, if no one has any questions or comments, maybe we'll take an opportunity just to seek some input from all of you. Annetta had mentioned some feedback that we received as part of the needs assessment conversations from a project about potentially looking for some individualized feedback on their evaluation plans. And we would be interested in knowing whether others might also have an interest in that. So we've got a poll here, and again, this is not a commitment to this, but just an initial assessment of any interest. And again, this poll is anonymous. You're not signing up for anything. All right, if everyone's had a chance to respond, I can share the results. So it looks a bit like about half of the respondents would be interested in some individualized feedback. So that's 5 people, 2 people or 20% said no, and another 3 or 30% are unsure. Just repeating that for the folks on the phone. I know the rest of you can see it. So thank you very much for that initial input. It's very helpful. So any last burning questions before we move along?
I wonder, Eric, if you want to comment on the question that came in from Brian, or the comment about filling in the profile on the site.
Oh, sure. Just a sec. Okay. I've run into that a couple times, Brian, about your profile not necessarily saving the information. So one of the issues that I've noticed is that the bio section at the top has a limit for characters. And if you go over that limit and try to save your profile, there's some sort of error message. So I can look into that, or if you do have pieces of information that you want to include in your profile, I can help you with that. But also note that at this stage, that profile is really only if you want to fill out. We don't display it anywhere necessarily, at least not yet, for your project. We do, like the Hub Secretariat and the leadership team has created profiles for people to read. But right now we don't really have a plan for where your individual registered accounts would show up as profiles. It's more for profiling your project itself in the landing pages. So, but that being said, I mean, you're more than welcome to fill out their profile, and I'm willing to, work with you to figure out exactly what happened there with that updating. But hopefully that kind of speaks to your question. Is that clear, Brian, or can I? Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And like I said, we did run into that once or twice before, so we will do a little bit more investigating on that. A couple more questions coming in the text.
So a question for Megan. I'll read it out for those on the phone. Regarding the review of evaluation plans, we understand that updated PM&E plans have to be submitted to FAC by the end of this week. Additionally, we have to get our ethics application in by mid-March. While we like the idea of getting additional feedback on our plan, we are wondering how quickly this could or would happen. Did you want to speak to that, Barb, or would you like one of us to field that?
I'm really actually grateful that you raised that. I think all of the projects you recently would have received from your FAC policy lead an email note that was clarifying, yes, the PME plans, as has been the case for a while, there's an update that's required by the end of February. And the follow-up note was actually from several discussions and dialogue between Public Health Agency and the Hub, just about making sure it was clear about the expectation that those plans, as well as project plans, continue to sort of adapt and evolve. And so it's not a fixed, locked in plan. For some it will be. It depends on the stage of development. There's so much diversity across all of the projects about where you're at with your planning. and the ethics applications, for sure, those of you who are far enough along and ready for the ethics submissions, that's where many, many details of the evaluation protocol need to be detailed. And for some of you, quite final at this point for phase 1. For others, those will continue to evolve, and ethics applications will be submitted later once you're getting into the research with human subjects. So I think that I just suggest check in with us about, you know, timing that might work for you, and even perspectives that you think might be helpful to feed into your process, and we'll navigate those times with individual projects. So I would say, you know, Megan, to your point, I mean, it's a great question. Thanks for being able to sort of clarify it here. But for individual projects, please be in touch if that's of interest, and we can sort out some possible timing and things that might work for you.
Awesome. And there's another question in the chat from Louise about any help in getting ethics approval would be helpful, especially in terms of identifying organizations that do this for non-governmental organizations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This actually is something that the Hub has already acted on. I mean, we're still in the process of you know, figuring out what kinds of supports we're able to offer, but then how responsive we can be. And in fact, a couple of projects have in fact reached out and said, you know, is there any way you can help with a scientific review? What we're doing is, I mean, you have direct contact with sort of the core Hub Secretariat, our team. One of the things that we're doing is connecting with, you know, resource people outside of that sort of core Hub team. So it's like a Hub extended family. So in fact, we have recruited, I mean, only one so far, but one scientific reviewer who did indeed provide a scientific review for one of the project's ethics applications. And we've had a similar question from another. And so again, that's a matter of sort of fit for purpose and the timing that's going to work and getting the right expertise that's aligned with the particular project in question. What is very important about that as well, brief point, is that when I see Louise's question, you know, organizations that do this for non-government organizations, it really is important when we're, you know, that's on that theme of fit for purpose as well. There are, you know, different perspectives that are brought to scientific review. Absolutely, there has to be sufficient expertise and experience related to the nature of the research of the project. So be that, you know, definitely community-based research, often participatory in nature, etc. So that's something there has to be a good fit between the reviewer and what the project is actually proposing. Great questions. Thank you for those.
Eric,
Yep.
if possible, I have a question for you. Just we contacted you a while ago about finding some réviseurs francophones for our team. Do you have any news on that, or?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we have reached out to a member of our leadership team who is Francophone and who has a number of colleagues and networks that she's reaching out within, to people that would have the ability and the expertise, as Barb says, to be able to provide a scientific review for that. So as far as I know, that is underway, and she is aware of the timelines of when you're hoping to have that review completed. So we hope to be able to get back to you with some news on that very soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we have the same timeline as Megan. We're gonna go mid of March, so for the ethics of health. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll let you know as soon as we can make that that connection.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fantastic. Okay.
So if there's no other No other questions at this point. I mean, if anything else comes up as we close off here in the last few minutes, I'll let Barb kind of speak to the closing reflections here. But if you do have any other questions, I mean, feel free to continue to add them into chat and or send them by email afterwards. We're more than happy to address them there too.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Eric. And it's really great to see the, just some of the use of chat, and, we're just trying to navigate some, the opportunities for speaking, etc. So if we move into the closing part of this, there is, as I mentioned at the outset, what we want to be able to do, and, testing this out today with you as well, is bring some closure to the session. This is less about a whole lot of discussion to bring closure, but it's more for each individual person to feel a sense of closure for what's been on your mind, related to what's been shared, what's been discussed today, because that will be different for everybody. So we'll just spend about a couple of minutes on each of these, and I invite you and encourage you actually to consider sharing any of your thoughts through chat. For those of you on the line, feel free to speak or just consider privately. As I say, we're not going to hear from everybody. So it really is a little bit more of an individual experience with this as well. So to first of all consider from today's session, what was important to your team and why?
Why? I do that at home so that I can keep one in my bag, and that way I never forget it.
Okay.
Okay. I got one for Jordy.
Oh, well, if you don't, I wouldn't say I really need.
So just considering that question, consider whether you want to share any of your thoughts through chat.
So one comment in the chat that I'll just speak aloud so that those on the phone can hear. Great to have a web-based resource where we can go for support and also connect and learn about the other projects, especially since there seems to be a lot of similarities. Excited to use it. That's great, and that is definitely one thing that we're looking forward to kind of facilitating over that web-based platform to allow projects to connect and to share their learnings in different ways. So thanks for that comment.
And another one in there, to see the resources that have been uploaded to the website for us to access. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We see an echo. I agree. It's great to be able to go and learn more about the other project. Thank you for those. Okay, so considering the second question then, how does what we discussed today inform what needs to happen next? Again, just consider that privately for you, what it might mean for what you may be doing next. That's great. More comments coming in about looking forward to exploring the articles and also referencing the calendar. Should there be webinars of interest, thanks for the work. And we appreciate the opportunity to connect one-on-one with the Hub around additional resources and opportunities for collaboration. We look forward to seeing how this will inform the continued development of the Hub. Oh, golly, us too. That's a shared enterprise. And then finally, at the outset, I mentioned about the experiential intention around, you know what, learning as we go, one of our core commitments. So the third question to consider here, what have we learned today about working together?
even any comments on things like if the polls were easy to use, for example. Again, as Lisa mentioned, we were just kind of testing that out today to see if that's an easy way to get some quick input from everybody on the call. And so for those of you who were able to click through those polls, you know, anything like that, that if that worked, if that was easy enough, that's great to hear as well.
And a comment that not all members of the team, understandably, will be able to, will be on the webinars. So it'd be great to have information that they can access when they can. And just to clarify on that point is that there will be a recording of each of the seminars, and that will have, those recordings will only be available to the projects and the hub team. And there will also be a written event brief. Eric mentioned those on the events page. And what we want to have is just a chronology of all events. Those are very focused descriptions of what happened, some main comments, and any materials like the slide deck will be on there as well. And projects and people will not be identified. So those event briefs will actually be posted publicly. And so your team members will have an option for either listening to recordings or reading the event briefs. So other messages too, let me see.
Brian, I assume more than one person from our team.
Oh yeah, sorry, Brian, your question about more than one person being able to join the hub, absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome to just create one account if you want to share, but anyone from your project who's involved in your project is welcome to register. Just when they do, be sure to identify if it might not be a name that would be recognized through some of the past communications we've already had with you and your project. Be sure to identify your project so that I can properly approve those accounts and give you access. As I mentioned earlier in the call, that hub website is only open to those who are involved in the MHPIF right now. So that there is that approval process that we kind of do for accounts. So just be sure to identify that. And yeah, absolutely, anybody who's involved in your project is welcome to peruse the website and use what we have. Yeah. Great question.
And there's some comments too about the polls being easy to use. Thanks for sharing the results, etc. And so not to disappoint, we'll actually conclude with a couple more polls. Just before we go there, let me read other things. There's a comment about, hang on here. Wonderful resources, supports to support the projects. Also, we need to work on a common vocabulary so that we can communicate here. Anything else? And a thank you for taking the time to orient us to the website. I think you did a really nice job there, Eric. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so again, being respectful of time, I want to leave just the last couple of minutes for your highlight of the hour, the polls. Yes, we'll conclude with a couple of them. And it truly is. I mean, you know, there's the information in the poll, but it's also an expression of, you know, what I shared at the outset, that core commitment for continuous improvement and just little mini feedback loops that we're going to experiment with you, because it's all about helping us do our role in a better way for the support of the project. So Lisa, I'll turn it over to you for the closing polls. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay, so just a couple of final polls, and just to get a sense of how people are feeling overall about the session. Again, these are all anonymous polls, so we won't be able to see individual responses, but we'd love to hear what you thought. So the question for those on the phone is, overall, how useful was this session to you? Okay.
And the only response option is very useful. Just kidding.
No. So, oh, all right. So, and then one last question as well. We wanted to just get a sense from you on what aspects of the session you might have found most useful to help us, again, adapt for next session and get a feel for what was really most useful aspects.
And the items listed there are the Hub website tour, the questions, discussion about the Hub website, information about the needs assessment, questions, discussion about the needs assessment, closing reflections, or other. And this can be multiple choice.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are you good to know? Okay. Wonderful. So we've got the Hub website tour. It's, looks like it was quite helpful for around, wow, the text is really small, 67%. Questions or discussion about the website, 40%. Information about the needs assessment, 33%. Questions or discussion about the needs assessment, 27%. And then we have one person who mentioned something else that was most useful to them. So thank you very much for completing that. Again, really helpful for us to get a feel for how things went, and glad to know that the polls were well received in terms of providing some of that feedback as well. It's really great.
So I'm sure that everybody, just to be respectful of time, will close down the webinar now. I do want to, I think all of us are probably navigating and reaching many different milestones, and I hope your project milestones are all going very well, with the usual, ups and downs that occur when doing anything innovative and different and new. And this too is a milestone today in meeting with you in this webinar. So thank you so much for joining, for participating, and we look forward to the next time, which will be March 13th. And that is for a co-design session for the annual symposium as well. So thank you very, very much. And until the next time.
All right. Oh, let me stop recording.
Oh, yes.